And I had two daughters. They were younger at the time. And I was like, I don't even know what to tell my kids. So I was kind of manipulating it. I was telling my kids that, the government's out to get me. I didn't do anything wrong. I just don't have money to fight this. I was basically lying to my kids because I was ashamed. I could sit here and say I wanted to protect them because I didn't want them, but really I was just embarrassed. I didn't want them to know what I had done, and daddy's got to go in timeout. So I just lied to them, and they didn't really find out the truth until I turned my life around inside prison. I really effed up with that, because when I came home and they found out, when I told them the truth, I cleansed myself by becoming truthful. When my younger daughter was so mad, she's like, I defended you and my friends teased me in school. And, it's heartbreaking because nobody wants to put their kids through that. And I made horrible choices that created victims out of everybody in my life, my kids, my ex-wife, my girlfriend, my best friends. These are all victims of my choices.
Wow. Oh my God.
I cry every time I tell this story. So.
Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the Beautifully Broken Me podcast. Our conversations are centered on helping you tap into your authentic superpowers, where you can become your truest, authentic self. Do you want more out of your life? Do you desire a life where you can flourish freely and live a life of peace, joy, and abundance? Leveraging on all of your life experiences and using them as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block? My guest will definitely challenge your thinking, giving you practical and relatable tools to be more, do more, and have more. My name is Noble IJ. I want to officially welcome you to the show. Before I bring on my guest, I just want you guys to know that I have a small gig, I have a small business. It is called Noble IJ Collections. Noble IJ Collection is an online store. We specialize on all kinds of hats, fancy hats, Debbie hats, church hats, party hats, wedding hats, fashion hats. Please do well to support my small business. Check out the link on my show notes. Hello everyone. Welcome again to this awesome episode of the Beautifully Broken Me podcast. Today's episode is really going to be insightful, enlightening, and informative. Honestly, guys, you will learn so much, especially about the prison system. And I have this very awesome guest. He's RDAP Dan. He's really going to, walk us through the process of, the prison system, and really just kind of like, enlighten, our mindset, and just really teach us, show us, expose some of the deep truths. And we're going to be debunking a lot of things in this particular episode. And I really want to welcome you, Dan, to the Beautifully Broken Me podcast.
Thank you, Noble. It's amazing. Is that how you pronounce your name, Noble?
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful name.
Thank you. Yes, so we want to meet with you basically. Who is Dan? Who is RDAP Dan?
RDAP Dan. RDAP Dan is a work in progress. My real name is Dan Wise, but RDAP Dan is just a pseudonym that kind of stuck with me throughout the prison journey. Now what I do is I'm a prison consultant. I work with mostly nonviolent first-time offenders, potentially getting ready to go into federal prison or going through the federal prison process, so going through trial, going through indictments, all of that stuff. But who I was an individual that lived my life kind of in a way where I was always looking for shortcuts. I didn't really want to put in the time and the effort to get what everybody else had. So where everybody else was going to school and getting an education and working their way up the corporate ladders or whatever, I was always kind of doing quick hustles and trying to find ways to beat the system. And it finally caught up with me in 2011 as myself and my girlfriend, Shelly, we both ended up taking a job working for a doctor's office out of Savannah, Georgia, a pain clinic, for those of you that don't know. And the doctor was overprescribing pain medication. My job was the office manager. Her job was the receptionist. I had never worked in a doctor's office before. I had no doctor's office experience. I met these individuals. I had a call center in Boca Raton, Florida. And I was renting office space from these individuals. They had a big office and they had about 13 desks that weren't being used. They had their own call center. So I was renting their space to do my own little thing. And I would constantly hear them talking about this doctor's office they were going to open, how there was all this money to be made. And my eyes were just, because the money I was making with my own call center was basically just enough to pay the bills, pay some reps, and there was really nothing left over for myself at all. So when I started asking them, is there any way I could get involved? I think they identified me as a, kind of a green individual. And what I mean by green, just very naive, I was just willing to do anything. I was like, don't ask, don't tell. And they ultimately said, hey, we'll give you 10 grand to come be the office manager in this office in Savannah, Georgia. We'll pay all your expenses. We'll pay your housing. We'll still pay for your housing expenses in Florida so you can come back and forth and see your kids.
Wow.
And the deal breaker was going to be, I was like, well, I've got my live-in girlfriend. And they're like, well, bring her. You can give her a job too. Hire her as a receptionist. And she didn't want to go. She was like, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound right. But she ended up following with me. And, we weren't there but a couple of months. And if anybody doesn't know what a pain clinic is, it's basically doctors writing prescriptions for pain pills, oxycodone, things like that. Most of these individuals that were coming to get their prescriptions, they were going to Georgia and they were driving from like Kentucky and Ohio and Connecticut. So, it's like, would you drive to Florida to come get a prescription? Probably not. So I avoid all the writing on the walls and I never got the money, by the way. On top of it, they never paid me $10,000 a month. So I can't even say that I made some money from this.
Oh my God.
It's what you get.
Wow. And then what happened next?
So what happened next was we were working. Things were going okay. We were getting kind of ramping up a little bit, and they decided they wanted to open up another pain clinic at the same time in Atlanta, Georgia. So this one that we already had was in Savannah. Then they wanted to open one in Atlanta. So they were buying an existing operation, and they wanted me to go to Atlanta to train the staff there to do things the same way we were doing things in Savannah. So one morning, I'm in Atlanta. I've been there for about a week or maybe 2 weeks at this point. I'm living in a hotel. And every morning, Shelly and I would get on the phone and we would talk on our way to work. So this morning, I call Shelly. She doesn't answer. I also got my best friend a job there, which I forgot to mention. He went up there with us, and his name is Costa. I call Costa. He's not answering. So I don't really think anything of it. And then I get to the office. I'm starting my routine. And one of the owners, Sean, calls me and he's like, hey, have you spoken to Shelly or Costa? I said, no. I go, why, what's up? He goes, well, I can't log into the cameras. We had one of those camera IP systems, remote, you could log into it. So we couldn't log into the cameras. So we're starting to wonder what's going on here. So I call to a business that was next door to the pain clinic, this place called Fatso's Burgers. Tony had the best burgers in Savannah, Georgia. Tony answers the phone and I said, hey, this is Dan from next door. And his voice changed. He goes, where are you? I was like, I'm in, what do you mean? He goes, man, there's about, I think he was exaggerating. There's about 500 cops out here and they're looking for you. And I was like, get the F out of here. What are you talking about? And yeah, they came in and dropped down an indictment or a complaint and said that the doctor was writing prescriptions for no legitimate purpose, basically saying that nobody had anything wrong with them. And I mean, there is more truth than it's not all like we're just running this giant scam, but the plea deal we took basically ended up saying, yes, we knew we were running an illegitimate operation, but that's what happened. Is they said that every prescription the doctor wrote was an illegitimate prescription. So the way they charged us was they charged me and everybody else except for Shelly. Shelly was the only one that didn't have initial charges. They charged everybody with the same thing they charged the doctor with. So for every prescription the doctor wrote from the day that we opened to the day that they shut us down, they charged me with that many pills. And if I would have gone to trial and lost on that pill count, it would have been 20 years to life. Wow. We didn't take it real serious in the beginning because we were like, this is such horse, you know what? There's no way. The doctor's the one writing the prescriptions. I just knew nothing about federal law and how things work. And this was 2011. So we all attorneyed up and we were fighting our attorneys. I had a in the state, you call it a public defender. In the feds, it's a federally appointed attorney. Night and day. Anybody that's in trouble by the feds and you're getting ready to go out and hire an attorney, unless you got a ton of money on you, a federally appointed attorney is not like a public defender. Public defenders in the state are usually brand new. They don't know what they're doing. You're probably going to get a really, really crap deal. In the feds, federally appointed attorneys are pretty good. And I had one. And eventually, after about a year, he's like, all right, I got you a plea deal. I'm like, oh, what's the plea deal? He's like, it's going to cap your sentence at 60 months. That's the most time they can give you. When I was facing 20 plus, and when he told me 60 months, I was like, probation? He's like, no, you're going to do prison time. And I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, I'm not going to prison. He's like, Dan, you're going to go to prison. And I wasn't ready to hear that yet. I wasn't accepting of that reality. So I turned down the plea deal and I said, I'm not taking it. And I fired I fired my attorney thinking that this was only because I had a free attorney. I'm thinking this stuff matters. So I went and hired a high price attorney, borrowed money, sold things, fought my case for another 1.5 to 2 years. And, ultimately, we're getting ready to go to trial. It was like 2 weeks before trial. And my attorney calls me up and he's like, hey, we got to change our game plan. I'm like, what do you mean? Because everybody on the case took a plea deal. Wow. And part of their plea deal is anybody that goes to trial, they're going to testify against, saying that they knew what was going on. Wow. So I had to basically get on my hands and knees and beg for a plea deal. And that's when I went to court and pled guilty. And, then I had to wait for sentencing. And Shelly got sentenced first. Shelly got charged with like a bullshit charge. Shelly got charged with something called misprison of a felony. And if you look it up, it's kind of like it's not a conspiracy charge. It's basically saying that maybe she had some kind of an idea something was going on and she didn't report it. God. So they gave her that charge and we all went to her I went to her sentencing, being she was first to get sentenced. And we all thought Shelly's getting probation. She's the low man on the totem pole. She's the least culpable of all of us. Mm-hmm. And the judge handed down a 13-month sentence of federal prison to her. And the rest of us knew we were cooked, because if they were giving her prison time, that just set the precedent for everybody's getting prison time. And, I once got sentenced a month later. Shelly was already in prison. We ended up going to the same prison, Coleman Federal Prison in Central Florida by Ocala. Mm-hmm. And when she self-surrendered, I drove her to prison. It was so weird. I drove her to prison, drove her to the women's camp, and we went to a little bar. I'll give you some pictures. We have some pictures of us at the bar. Shelly got very, very wasted because she was terrified. She's turning herself into prison. And we've never been in this kind of trouble before. Shelly's never had a speeding ticket. So she turns herself in. I make the lonely drive back home. And then it's September 23rd, 2014, I drove myself back down there with a couple of friends and self-surrendered. I was sentenced to 42 months. But my friends thought it would be fun to not take it too serious. So my friend Matt's like, Dan, you got to do something crazy, something that nobody's done before. And I was like, I can't even think right now. What do you have in mind? So he comes up with this crazy idea. We go to a Halloween store, Party City. It's around Halloween time. Mm-hmm. And we buy and I'll send you a picture of this too. I have a picture of me at the prison. I bought a black and white prison costume, like for Halloween, with a little black and white hat, black and white clothes. And that's what I wore into prison the day I turned myself in. And it didn't go over too well.
Wow. Whew.
Yeah.
But I needed some time to just kind of
Yeah, it's a lot. I run through it so fast, but truly the leading up to all of that from 2011 until September 23rd, 2014, turning myself in, it was the emotions were, at one point you're looking at 20 years. And then even when I knew I was looking at worst case scenario, even when I knew I was looking at 60 months, that still felt like eternity. You could have told me it was a year. It all felt so just unmanageable. And I had 2 daughters. They were younger at the time. And I was like, I don't even know what to tell my kids. So I was kind of manipulating it. I was telling my kids that, the government's out to get me. I didn't do anything wrong. I just don't have money to fight this. I was basically lying to my kids because I was ashamed. I could sit here and say I wanted to protect them because I didn't want them. But really, I was just embarrassed. I didn't want them to know what I had done, and daddy's got to go in timeout. So I just lied to them, and they didn't really find out the truth until I turned my life around inside prison. I really effed up with that, because when I came home and they found out, when I told them the truth, I cleansed myself by becoming truthful. When my younger daughter was so mad, she's like, I defended you, and my friends teased me in school. And, it's heartbreaking, because nobody wants to put their kids through that. And I made horrible choices that created victims out of everybody in my life, my kids, my ex-wife, my girlfriend, my best friends. These are all victims of my choices.
Wow. Oh my God. But honestly, like,
I cry every time I tell this story. So some inmates cry. But yeah, so that's kind of the initial phase of what happened.
I just wanted to kind of tell us what happens when you turn yourself in.
Sure. So the day I turned myself in, as I told you, I wore the prison costume, and you go into what's called, at least in the feds, you turn yourself into what's called R&D, receiving. It's it's basically intake.
So before then, what do you get?
Say it again.
Do you get anything that says, oh, you have to turn yourself in?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I knew my surrender date. The judge told me at my sentencing, the judge said, you have to self-surrender by September 23rd, by 2 p.m. to whatever designation the BOP determines is best for you. So I didn't know where I was going to go yet. We had asked for Coleman, which is where I ended up going, but a judge can't, like, some clients think, or when I say clients, defendants, they say, oh, the judge told me I was going to go to this prison, I was going to get this program. The judge has no say over that. The judge can only make recommendations as to where you're going to go and what prison or what programs to take. He only gets to impose the sentence. So when you get sentenced, all of your paperwork goes to a designation center in Grand Prairie, Texas, and they determine based on your criminal history, your age, all that stuff. So I get notified by the U.S. Marshals that my designated prison is Coleman Federal Prison, same one that Shelley received. And it's getting that mail, getting certified mail from the Marshal's office, you know exactly what it is. And it's like, you don't want to open it. It's like the opposite of getting an acceptance letter from a college. It's like, so yeah, terrifying.
Wow. Oh my God. Okay. So what does it really feel like for somebody who had never committed any crime and just, handing yourself over? I just want you to walk us through that experience, because I know it's really very nerve-wracking. And I could have some listeners who, would be turning themselves in, or possibly in that process. And I just really want you to really kind of talk to these people.
Yeah, the best way to relate it is, if you've ever had a family member that's like passed away, not abruptly, but maybe they passed away of cancer or some kind of illness, that you had to sit there and watch them like wither away. It was kind of like, I remember when my father died and I was in his apartment after he'd passed, I was packing up all his belongings. When I was packing up my stuff, as I was getting ready to go in there, it was like, it's just this very numb, spacey feeling. You don't really feel anything, because you're going into such uncharted territory. It just felt like the weirdest, surreal nightmare, that it takes such a toll mentally on you, because it's not like you get in trouble today and go to prison tomorrow. This span of time just messes with your mind. I remember when I knew my surrender date was September 23rd, I remember I had a gallon of milk in the refrigerator, and the expiration date on the milk was like September 24th or 25th. I said, this milk is still going to be good while I'm sitting in prison. And it was like, it was just weird. Giving somebody advice on what to do is really more of owning what you did, because it allows you to stop being in this anger where you're mad and you're blaming everybody and you're trying to look for a way out of it, and there's no way out. Mitigating your circumstances, now that's what we do for a living, is help people go through this process. But it was things that I didn't know, like letters to the judge. Everybody writes a letter, but every letter almost looks exactly the same. If your mom wrote you a letter, Noble, if you were getting in trouble and you're like, Mom, I need you to write me a letter to the judge, your mom's letter would be like, Noble's a really good, she's got this podcast. She helps people. She goes on the weekends it's just, it's the same thing the judge has seen a million times. It's not really taking much accountability. But the day I got there and turned myself in, and, aside from the whole costume thing, that part that kind of pissed them off a little bit. But once I got past that and they put me into general population and I saw the community, and there was no like cell doors. It was just a big open compound, kind of like a college campus or a high school campus type of a look. We had a half-mile track. We had flat screen TVs everywhere. We had sports. We had education classes. We had physical fitness. We had, there's so much to do on this compound I was like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't kill myself now, because this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. And, I got lucky. I met a lot of really good, fortunate people in prison that I still talk to this day, that are good people that just made mistakes. They weren't like out there running a life of crime. They made some poor decisions. They put themselves in a bad situation. And I used it to my advantage to not want to put myself in this situation ever again. Cause it's real easy I call it taking the elevator instead of taking the stairs. It's real easy to find a shortcut, but yeah, wow. I'm going off on a rant now. Thank God you got editing over there.
Oh my God. Okay. So I'm just going to get it together right now. Can you just really kind of like tell us, because the way you were painting the picture, all the things, it kind of looked like way different from the things I see in movies, from all the violence, all the craziness, that we see in movies. And I just want you to kind of like point us through the right path, basically.
Sure. The average person that I deal with is, like I said, first time, nonviolent. These, including myself, never been in trouble before, but every depiction I've had of prison is, Locked Up Abroad, or the old TV show Oz, where it's just violence, extortion, gang violence. So that was what I thought it was going to be like. So much so that it was like it was eating at me so bad. And that does exist. Those environments do exist in both the state and feds. But in the federal system specifically, you have a couple different custody levels. You have at the minimum is called a camp. Most federal prison camps don't even have a fence around them, because these are people that are not violent. Their crime was, tax evasion or low-level drug dealing. Like there was no guns, nobody got hurt. It was just, it wasn't that bad, but the law was broken. Then you have low security, where I was at a low security. You are behind a fence, but there's still no real prison politics there. Like the whites can, you and I couldn't hang out because you're female, but me and like one of my best friends in there was this guy, Calvin Hampton, black dude. If we were at a higher security prison, we wouldn't be able to chill together. We wouldn't be able to eat and go watch TV together. Prison politics becomes real in the higher securities. Also, they have what's called checking your paperwork. So like if you're in trouble and you're trying to get yourself out of trouble, you can cooperate and you can like give them information on other people. Well, all that gets documented, goes into what's called a pre-sentence report. And if you go to a higher security prison, when you get there, one of the first things they want to see is your paperwork. They want to see, did you tell on anybody? Did you mess with little kids? Things of that nature. And if you have any check marks in any of those boxes, you could potentially get beat up. You might have to pay getting extorted for protection, or they make you go do what's called check-in, where you got to go check into the shoe, and you can't sit at tables, you can't go on the yard. Where I was at, that type of stuff didn't exist. It was kind of like, there was some violence, but there's probably about as much violence as you would see like in a high school compound, where people get in a fight over something stupid, somebody lost in a sport, or the change in the TV. That's where a lot of the fights would happen, is in the TV room. I just didn't engage with any of that. And once I got into RDAP, the Residential Drug Abuse Program, it's a 500-hour cognitive behavior therapy program, which is designed for substance abuse, to help with substance abuse, whether it be alcohol, marijuana, prescriptions. I had documented that I smoked marijuana on somewhat of a regular basis.
Mhm.
And even though I was very functioning with my marijuana, it qualified me for that program. And when I got into the program, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a year off my sentence. This is fantastic. I'm just going to do what they want me to do.
Mhm.
And it was the hardest thing I ever did, because it was more about, calling you out, and you had to pull each other up. You'd have to tell on each other if you catch another inmate stealing chicken, or you have to tell on each other in front of everybody. You can get kicked out of the program real easy. And once the program grabbed root, took a couple months before I realized I'm not beating this program. I'm either gonna give into it and let it like take over and trust the process, or I'm going to get kicked out of this program and I'm going to spend that extra year in here. And I really wanted to go home, but honestly, I probably wouldn't have stayed out of prison if I hadn't done RDAP, because I still would have been in that mentality of, it's somebody else's fault that I'm here. And I probably would have continued to try to, get over on people and beat the system. So RDAP changed my life in so many ways.
Wow. And honestly, like I have a lot of people come on my podcast and they share stories about how the prison changed them positively. Some of them will be like, I got to meet with God, I became a better Christian. And some will be like, I got this and this and this. So tell us about those services, and why does this really happen often?
Yeah, because you're at an all-time low spot. So, it's so cliche. It's like, I found God in prison. Well, I found God in prison, funny enough. And I didn't think it would ever happen, because I was very anti-religion going into the prison system. Mm-hmm. And when I was trying to get into RDAP, there was some roadblocks that I was hitting, and it would take me a whole nother episode to go over those. But to cut it to the point, I was denied for RDAP. And I remember going back to my bunk the day that I got denied. And I was upset. I was mad. I was laying on my bunk, and I remember my bunkie below me. He was like, "What's going on, Wise?" And I was like, I told him the real quick story of it. And he's like, "I know you don't believe in God. You're not religious, but my best friend's mother would always send me self-help books. And with every self-help book she would send, she would also send a religious book, like a Bible or a daily reader." And he's like, "Your mom's friend sent you this really nice Bible that you haven't even opened. Why don't you try reading it and see maybe if it gives you some peace? What's the worst that could happen?" And I didn't read it, but I remember picking it up and laying on my bunk. And I remember saying, right before I fell asleep, "God, I'm not going to ask you to put me in RDAP, but oh my God, I'm going to have to do an extra year. Please give me the strength to get through tomorrow with whatever hurdles out there. Please, just, I give up. Give me the strength to get through it." It wasn't an hour later, my bunk is getting tapped, and Josh is like, "Hey, they're calling you to the front. They're calling you to the front." And something happened, and they redid everything. Like, "Hey, you're in RDAP." Is it a coincidence? Maybe. Is it believing in God? I like to think so, because it definitely sent chills through my body. So yeah, I believe if you do the right thing for the right reason, and you're not doing things for selfish behavioral advantages, then whatever works for you is going to be, a form of religion. So I would tell people, it's because you're at an all-time low and you finally hitting a rock bottom, and you realize you have to give up control, serenity, in order to move forward. And God has an amazing ability to step in when you're at your lowest.
Absolutely. Wow. And just really kind of like, at this point, I just want you to like tell us, what is life after prison? Because a lot of people in prison, possibly because they've stayed for too long, and it's a thing of, oh my God, what is going to happen? I don't know how to start up all over again. And I want you to really talk to those kind of people.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. It's really hard, coming home from prison, whether you're there, a year, 10 years, and I've met people from all walks of life. The one thing I'll tell you is there's going to be roadblocks when you come home from prison. Life for you is going to be harder than the average person because of the choices that you made. But if you have a self-defeating thought process of, they're not going to hire me because I'm a felon. No one's going to hire me because I'm a felon. These are awfulizing statements that you're making, these absolutes, and it's allowing you to justify not trying, because it's easier than failure, and it's also easier than putting in the effort. I believe it's an excuse. I believe if you're going to sit here and say that, oh, my life is so much harder because of my convictions. Okay, yeah, places maybe not, you may not get hired at the first job. You may not get, put in the first department. But numbers don't lie. And there are people out there. It's a fact. There are people that hire felons. It's a fact that felons find housing. It's a fact that that felons can reinvent themselves. So if you know for an average person, it's going to take 10 interviews to get a job. Well, for you as a felon, maybe it's going to take 20. So just set up 20 interviews and that's your magic number. And if you just set your mindset forward and you don't allow yourself to make excuses for why you can't do something, you'll be successful. In whatever it is.
Wow, that's really kind of like the perfect advice for, because
it applies to everything. It's not just prison; it applies to everything.
It's so true. It's really so true. Yes. So I just want you to I know you touched about you talked about the camp, you talked about the low security, and then I just want to know those particular, because when you watch those movies and you see those very violent crimes, you see people fighting each other, you see those people trying to stab each other, kill each other, and all of those kind of things. So what level of prison is that? Is it
mediums and penitentiaries. Okay. And in the feds anyway, mediums and penitentiaries, people that potentially looking at life, murderers, just repeat offenders, people that are in and out of the system that just, it's a way of life to them. They're either not ready to change, they don't want to change. Maybe their code of honor, the gangs are involved in, some people get so far and so deep that it's all they're ever going to know. And they're more comfortable in that situation than they are. And in there, it's like kindergarten. You're told when to go to sleep. You're told when to get up. You're told when to play. You're told when to eat. You don't have to make any choices. It's done for you. It's like fairy tale land. In the real world, the real world is unforgiving. You've got to make it for yourself. No one's going to do it for you. So I think, that's the big difference in there is they've adapted to that lifestyle of the the barbaric type of a lifestyle, and it's not for everybody for sure, but it doesn't have to be that way.
And tell us about the services. You're doing such an awesome job, really incredible job. I've listened to a few of your YouTube channel posts, and I just want you to tell us about the services and what you do with clients and stuff.
Sure. So 3 days before I self-surrendered to federal prison, so I went in September 23rd, 2014. On September 20th, 2014, I posted a video on YouTube and I titled it Going to Federal Prison. Didn't know what to expect. I was just kind of ranting. Anyway, went to prison, did all of that, came back, and one day I checked my email and I see a YouTube comment. And I'm like, what are all these? I forgot I made the video. And all of the comments from the video were from people getting ready to go through something similar. It wasn't necessarily the same crime as me, but a similar nonviolent type of a crime. And they're like, hey, if you're out, can you tell us what it was really like and programs? And I started making response videos just because I thought it would be, first, it was kind of fun. I was engaging. And I was telling people, hey, this is what I wish I'd done different. I wish I'd paid more attention to my letters. And after about a month of making these videos daily, I started getting calls from federal criminal defense attorneys asking me if they could hire me to work with their clients, because the stuff that I was discussing is stuff that they didn't really have a lot of knowledge in. So we developed a system. We ended up hiring a life coach. We ended up hiring a chemical dependency professional. We hired an ex-attorney. We hired some writers, and then we took some classes. We developed a system that we work with people, not so much like how to prepare for a day in prison. It's more what you can do between now and the time you go that could mitigate your circumstances, that could give the judge a reason to want to maybe give you a shorter sentence. The types of letters you're going to write to the judge, how you take accountability. If you're an attorney that got in trouble and now you might be going to federal prison for whatever you did, we might have that attorney that's in trouble now go back to the school that he graduated and speak to pre-law students about what he could have done different so he didn't put himself in that situation because he was in the same seat that they were in. So making these cautionary tales, trying to connect with the community, community is method, people helping people is kind of where this all started. The money came from it as an accident. I never intended for this to be a business. It just got out of control, and now it grows on its own. I don't need to do anything, and just by putting that content out there, people reach out to me every day and go to our website and book consultations. It's been I've been very fortunate and blessed, but I do work hard.
Wow, so so great content. Great
Thank you.
content. Like I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know this kind of services is out there. Like
Neither did I.
honestly, it is so incredible. It is awesome. So I want you to kind of, we're about wrapping up. So I just want you to tell us really kind of like, what would you have done differently knowing all of this right now? What are the lessons you learned in this journey? I know I'm going to ask you my signature question. That's one of my favorite part. But I just want you to kind of like, tell us really kind of like the lessons you learned and what you would have done differently knowing all that you know right now.
It's such a hard question to answer because I probably wouldn't have done anything differently because I wouldn't know what I know now. The difference would be play it out in your head. Like if your friend says, hey, let's go out and get high and let's go for a drive, and you could play it in your mind. What would happen if I got in a car accident right now and I'm high? What would happen if somebody died? And you can play these scenarios through. And if there's a bad outcome that you're not willing to deal with, you've got to be able to hold yourself accountable and say, oh man, as much as I want to go smoke some weed right now, if we're not going to be doing it in the comfort of my own house, you have to really weigh out the consequences, or else you're going to pay the price. And if you're not ready for that, you're going to start blaming everybody else. So you really have to pay attention to your surroundings and your circumstances.
Wow. That's such a good one. So good. And I just want you to really kind of talk to that little Dan. What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self that, Dan, you've got this amazing gift. You're great with people. You're great at sales. Take your time, find some patience. You don't have to get to the very top tomorrow. Enjoy the journey. It's not just about the destination. Take your time, smell the flowers. Getting there too fast, you're going to get there and you're not going to be ready for it. And if you didn't dot an I or cross a T, the rug gets pulled out and it's very superficial. The framework, the groundwork, it wasn't there. You were living on a bunch of broken bricks.
Wow. Well, one thing I picked from what you said, enjoy the journey. It's not just about the destination. That is just for me like a drop mic moment. What is one of those last words you're going to be leaving us with as we close?
Last words, if you're in any situation right now and you're going through something that seems like it's unbearable, maybe you were molested as a child, maybe you've lost a child, maybe you've just lost your mortgage, you lost your house, and you think that this is it. It's never going to get any better than this. You got to realize that you're not in this alone. There's other people that are going through exactly what you're going through. So you need to reach out to your community and see who can give you some positive, not necessarily advice, but kind of be there and explain to you that, hey, focus on tomorrow. Things suck right now, but if you get up tomorrow and you make your bed and you brush your teeth and you make your coffee and you put your dishes away, you do these positive behaviors and and it creates a habit to where if you do the right thing today, everything will fall in place tomorrow. Just don't get complacent in negativity.
Wow. This is such a powerful one. It was really powerful. It was just like, oh my God, just do the right thing. Just do it. And honestly, like, I wouldn't forget this. Tell us about your YouTube channel. Tell us about if you have a Facebook group, if you have a podcast, if you have a book. Tell us about those services, and I definitely will put it on the show notes too.
Sure. Yeah. No book. My YouTube channel, RDAP Dan. Everything is under RDAP Dan. Social media. We have a support group on Facebook. It's for family members or people that have already gotten out. But it's what we were just talking about. If you have like a wife of her husband's getting ready to go to prison and she's never been through this before, join the Facebook group because it's people that can tell you how they got through it, people in different phases. So it's just people helping people, communities method, one day at a time.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you. Wow, what an incredible episode. I hope you've been blessed by this episode. Please be sure to subscribe so that you'll be the first to know when we upload a new episode. And please feel free to also tell a friend if this episode has greatly inspired you. You can visit us at thebeautifullybrokemme.com. You can also send us an email at noblej@noblej.com. We're also on social media at The Beautifully Broken Me. Thank you for listening. Stay blessed. Be well.